City transportation comes with a multitude of reports to make for the smooth running of a transportation business. This is a list of just some of the interesting reports that come built into the system, also possible to customize. The order fulfillment report shows the transportation contract for each customer versus all the deliveries that have been made and other aspects of transportation, such as the cost of sales. And this gives us an idea of just how much more work there is to do on specific contracts. The shipment status shows the summary of all consignments with their different statuses, such as en route, loading, delivered, delayed, and any other status messages that can be custom defined by the transportation department. You can see here that it shows a list of all the shipping orders, the customers, the status, and the route that is being used by that particular order, the dispatch date, and any dangerous goods codes that are assigned to the freight. And this can be used by safety department as well when there is an accident and they need to look at the environmental impact and how to respond to that accident. And the trip expenses is a very popular report and is normally used by the finance department on a daily basis to help plan and monitor the payments that are being made to drivers as they're being dispatched. This particular example shows a couple of shipping orders in the date range that I specified, and it tells us the route code, the driver's name, any budget expenses versus the actuals that are being paid. It has the advantage of showing all the different currencies involved in a consignment note. As you may recall, cross-border shipping may require multiple currencies for a driver. For instance, in US dollars, when crossing a border from one country to another, that would be used for payments in that country. The Trip Profit Monitoring Report is also a very popular report and is used by the commercial departments to try and look at what the billing rates are on similar routes to a new one that is being developed, and also by a chief financial officer to just to look at the profitability of specific trips. In this example trip, there are 3 items. One is an AP invoice from a security services company, and this might have been a guard service for the truck having broken down along the way. The second line shows revenue based on a delivery that was done, a successful delivery, and the third basically shows us a trip allowance that was given the driver before he left for the trip, and then it shows us the gross profit of that specific trip. The vehicle statement, which is normally run at the end of the month, gives a detailed account of all the financial transactions that would have occurred against a vehicle in that period of time. And these would be things such as fuel that was issued to the vehicle, the revenue that it created from customers being invoiced, and the trip expenses that were involved. this example, this vehicle has an opening balance of 0. Has a couple of transactions that occurred there, some issue of diesel, invoices to customers. It's also itemized, as you can see. It tells you the line details of the document in question. There is also some record there of outgoing payments, which were trip expense. The driver statement does a similar report to a vehicle statement. This time it reports specifically on the driver. As you know, drivers may be switching vehicles from time to time, and this statement captures all financial activity that has happened for a driver regardless of how many vehicles he drove in the period. It answers the question, how profitable is my driver? The gross profit analysis reports are a very important part of the single integrated transportation management system, and the reason is that it brings all the financial information together, as well as the distances that were traveled by the vehicles. This gives us the ability to show a cost per kilometer measure as well as a profit per kilometer. The report in this particular case is showing us one line per vehicle. It gives us all of the consignments that were handled by that vehicle in that period, the total distance that was covered, total revenue, direct expenses, and the measures there at the end: revenue per kilometer, cost per kilometer, and profit per kilometer. And it's very easy to spot the loss-making vehicles in that period very easily. And in this particular case, the third vehicle is making a loss of about 1 kwacha per kilometer. And you can go and run the vehicle statement in order to get the detailed breakdown of how that number is made up. Gross profit analysis by route is similar to gross profit analysis by vehicle. And in this case, our report is showing us one route. And for the period of time that we have run this report, it shows us that there is a route code, the Beira route code, with 13 shipments and with the cost per kilometer of 1.25. Gross profit analysis by tour displays a summary of all the circuits that are traveled by drivers and their vehicles, along with their profitability. This is normally run on a monthly basis and is used for strategic decision making. In a transportation business, you always have to look at the best profitable routes and best profitable tours that drivers are on, so that you can consolidate and focus on routes and tours that make money. Gross profit analysis by drivers. Also similar, displays a summary of all vehicle operators and their profitability, normally run monthly, and is used by senior management in order to look at how busy their drivers are, how profitable the individual drivers are, as well as HR departments when they're looking at incentive schemes for drivers. Fuel usage analysis report displays a summary of all the vehicles plus the routes that they have traveled on in the period defined, alongside their fuel efficiency. Now, this report is basically gives you an indication of whether you need to investigate any further the fuel consumption of specific vehicles, and can be for any reason, such as repairs needing to be made to the fuel system, to the fuel line of the vehicle, or used by safety department to investigate fraud or bad driving patterns. In this case, we've got the first two trips that were made by ABM 8399 having consumed fuel more than 50% of the normal fuel requirement. The other two lines seem okay. The vehicles or the trips were within range. So this seems like Michael Hussein with his vehicle ACH53 are doing quite well. There at the bottom, the report shows us an estimate of our fuel loss total in that period that we have run the report. Tire usage analysis basically shows us which brands of tires are the best for our vehicles. And this is done by looking at the cost of the tires versus the total distance that they have traveled at swap out. Each of these tire brands shown in this report has a cost per kilometer based on the total distance that they have traveled. And we can see from here that the best or the worst tire is the second one, and perhaps it's for different reasons. It might be that it's fitted on a steering axle, whereas the other ones are driven axles, or it's not the right brand for our vehicle. And so all sorts of decisions can be made on this, whether to swap tires out to different axles or whether to focus our purchases of tires in future to the cheapest or the lowest cost brands. Technician activities is a maintenance report that shows us how much work our technicians are performing in the workshop. This is especially useful to a vehicle maintenance manager who wants to look at how technicians stack up against each other in terms of effort of work. Do we need to give more work to some technicians that other than the ones we are always assigning? vehicle maintenance history shows us a detailed account of the work that has been performed on an individual vehicle, and this is normally run during audits when you've got auditors on site who want to see whether you've got records for maintenance of your vehicles. It's also used during maintenance planning to look at whether vehicles need a major service, for instance. Mandatory permits reports show us a list of all the permits that are required by drivers and vehicles all of the time, and to tell us whether they expired or how many days we have before they expire. This is used mostly by the safety department to determine whether certain permits and licenses, insurances need to be ordered for drivers and or for vehicles. Everywhere that it is blank shows us that the driver does not have the permit, the driver's license, and everywhere else shows us how many days we have before the expiry of those licenses. The same report exists for vehicles. We can select a specific vehicle to check for or run it for all of them. And in this case, we've got a fitness permit that has 34 days before expiry for this vehicle, and that this vehicle does not have two mandatory permits, identity and road tax, and therefore the safety department can initiate a purchase requisition for the rest of these permits. Bear in mind that the system can be configured to block creation of consignment notes for a vehicle that does not have at least one mandatory permit.